So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our live Q&A, introducing the Collaborative on Economic Mobility. My name is Karis Manus. As I mentioned, I'm a Senior Associate for Learning and Dissemination here with the National Community Action Partnership. I am also joined today by Lily Seals, our Director of Practice Transformation. We want to begin today's presentation with a land acknowledgement that every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. For me today, this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Lumbee people, and I pay my respect to elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And we encourage you to share in the chat where you're joining us from today as well. We also want to begin our time by grounding ourselves in the promise of community action that brings us all together today. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. So for today, our objectives for today's webinar, we will be providing an overview of the Collaborative on Economic Mobility's purpose, approach, and timeline. We will also be identifying key focus areas for future training and technical assistance opportunities. And we'll also be introducing an opportunity to provide feedback through the Training and Technical Assistance Needs Survey. And now I will hand it over to Lily Seals to give us the overview of this project.
Well, hello, everyone. Greetings. I know we have probably good morning and some good afternoons from across the nation. So want to talk about the Collaborative on Economic Mobility project. We're so excited that you are joining us to learn more. So the purpose of the Collaborative on Economic Mobility is intended to highlight emerging and promising practices in economic mobility for low-income communities and to expand or build the capacity of the Community Action Network to deliver services that promote economic mobility. So this project, and we want to certainly say, show an appreciation and a thank you to the Office of Community Services. They put out a notice of funding opportunity relating to this project, and NCAP applied for this project, and that is how we certainly came to be, and we can move forward. In that NOFA, they really focused on certainly economic mobility. They have several overarching priorities. They want to ensure that the programs and services that we administer are of the highest quality possible, and that we're reaching those most in need, lifting up the voices from the field. So that's certainly our network, and using lessons learned so that we are thoughtful, inclusive, and innovative in our approach. And certainly, of course, identifying opportunities to break down silos and implementing cross-cutting initiatives, certainly within OCS, ACF, and across the federal government, but thinking about how that also may look like right within the world of community action. So back in 2022, OCS did a survey, a National Training and Technical Assistance Survey of the network. And they identified 5 key focus areas. Those 5 key focus areas are workforce development, high quality education, community asset building, two generation and whole family approaches, and innovative community programs and organizations. So within this opportunity, they really said these are the areas that the network really wanted to have training and technical assistance tools and resources to inform and support our work. And all of that, all of these areas, it should be centered in equity. Um, NCAP also said, we believe in equity, and you all I know are familiar with our work in that space. But we also wanted to pull equity out and have it as its own focus area, because there may be certain things that may not fall within those particular focus areas, but they still may be challenges and or barriers for families, maybe to even get to a particular point. So we talk about workforce development, but we also know if a family or an individual, a parent or a child, if they are not healthy, then it makes it hard for a parent to be able to say, oh, I really would love to enter this career or this program or this service, because I have to care for, myself if I'm not healthy, or my children. So we really want to think about having access to high quality healthcare, just to kind of give an example. So these are, for this project, we are focusing on when we think about economic mobility, what are, our ultimate goal out of this, right, is, or output, I would say, is for us to develop high quality training and technical assistance tools and resources that support our work in these key focus areas. And a little bit later, Karis is going to she'll go a little bit more in depth in some of these areas. So talk about a little bit about our approach. So our project, it is a 3-year project, and it's broken down into 2 phases. So our first phase, which is phase 1, which we are in the midst of now, we are working on a research report, really looking at, what are the inequities that exist, and what are those kind of promising practices that exist in relation to certainly those inequities, as well as some of those needs that are identified by the network. And we'll talk a little bit about the survey that we have. We, of course, are going to evaluate those tools, the training and technical assistance tools and resources that we certainly disseminate. And all of that, the actual tools will go into that kind of implementation and evaluation phase, which is phase 2. And of course, we'll have a final report. And if you all remember our previous project, LCRC, which stands for the Learning Communities Resource Center, that was a project that I think was about 10 plus years, a little bit over that. And we did come out with a white paper to really kind of summarize all of the work that was done in LCRC. And I see some LCRC alum on the call, and it would certainly be a similar feel. We're going to, we're working through this 3-year project, and we want to know how, we want to evaluate what were those outcomes. Did these tools really help you, your organization, to implement services, high quality services that really were impactful in the lives of your families and communities that you're in service to? So how are we doing this work? As I stated earlier, we have to make sure that we're certainly listening to and lifting up the voices of the network. So we have a steering committee who is guiding a lot of what we do. And if you are on this, live Q&A, I'm hopeful that you all have looked at or reviewed our survey, which our which our steering committee was certainly a part of it. But our steering committee, who really is kind of guiding our work and ensuring that the voices of the network is attached, as I say, from beginning to end, right? From beginning to end. So the very development to the implementation, certainly to the evaluation of all the work that we do. So we have national partners. Our national partners are certainly NASCAP, it's CAP Law. So our national partners are a part of the steering committee. We have local, state, and regional community action leaders. So we have RPICs, we have state associations, we have local community action agencies, who are all represented, really being that voice of community action. And every region of the nation for our work has been certainly invited to participate as a part of the steering committee, so that there's representation, right? Because we all know if you see one community action, you see one community action. We know regions are different. We know states are different. So we really wanted to make sure that we were as representative, certainly, as possible in that. We also have subject matter experts. So thinking about those focus areas and really saying, who are those subject matters or those subject matter experts or those leaders in workforce development and high quality education and whole family approach to gen. Who are those subject matter experts that, as we talk about kind of what the priorities are, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. If you've seen the survey, you now know where we're going. But when we get to those priorities, really speaking with our subject matter experts to help us to define and note what are those emerging and promising practices. And then we also have our Shriver Fellows. And Shriver Fellows are important because they are our customers with lived experience. So we have customers with lived experience who, again, are with us from the very beginning. They are co-creating solutions with us. They're co-creating this process right alongside of us. So the survey that you see developed, our Shriver Fellows had an opportunity to review and respond, right, and give feedback. Certainly for the survey, but also, just kind of in terms of the process. So we're really excited that we have Shriver Fellows who are a part of the steering committee, because we really have to make sure that we are not just saying that, customers are at the table, but we are engaging them. We are, I think at times we say, how are we filling everyone's cup? But they really are the voices of what we do. And they are experts in their lives. So we have content experts, which are national partners, our local, state, and regional community action leaders, and our subject matter experts. And then we have context experts, and those are our Shriver Fellows. And we need both to have maximal impact. So we're very excited about that. And they are really kind of working with us and guiding us kind of through this process. So just as we say a steering committee, they are walking alongside of us as we go through this journey of this project. So I believe with that, I am getting ready to hand off to my colleague Karis, who's going to talk a little bit more about the key focus areas.
Yes. So when we look a little bit deeper at each of these focus areas, we'll start with workforce development. And so when we talk about workforce development, we are talking about obtaining full-time employment in skilled labor, because that increases economic stability and fosters upward mobility. And so under workforce development, it includes things like career and technical education, or CTE programs, vocational or sector-specific training programs, entrepreneurship-focused education and skills training programs, youth workforce development programs in high-need sectors, working partnerships with local American job centers, work-based learning models, and employment and career pathways. Next, we'll look at high-quality education. And with high-quality education, we are looking at the completion of a post-secondary degree that increases upward economic mobility for households with low incomes. With high-quality early childhood education and K-12 learning, as well as access to enrichment activities that can increase the likelihood of achieving post-secondary degrees. So under high-quality education, it includes access to early childhood education, such as Head Start and Early Head Start, after-school enrichment programs, support in visiting and applying for colleges, adult education and general education development programs, scholarships, funding opportunities for K-12 schools, teacher retainment and recruitment, and summer enrichment activities will all fall under the high quality education focus area. The next focus area is community asset building. And with community asset building, we are looking at neighborhood, socioeconomic, and racial segregation that leads to lower economic mobility, especially in areas of concentrated poverty. And within this focus area, it includes volunteer and civic action opportunities, community-specific associations, community-specific events, community revitalization efforts, as well as mentoring programs and anti-racism efforts. And then we also have our 2-gen and whole family approaches focus area, because with this focus area, we're looking at a stable family structure, increases the opportunity for upward mobility. 2-generation and whole family approaches support family stability by providing meaningful support for the entire family. And so within this focus area, it includes home visiting programs, parenting programs, fatherhood initiatives, case management or coaching services, housing stability programs, access to basic necessities such as food, shelter, and clothing, support in accessing anti-poverty programs, community wellness and health clinics, as well as mental health programming. And then I will turn it back over to Lily to talk about our other 2 focus areas.
Thank you, Karis. So innovation, we know in community action, thinking about our history and how community action really is grassroots, and poverty is complex. So we've had to be really innovative in how we are in service to our families and communities. So the innovative community programs and organizations really looks at identifying and sharing models from effective and innovative community programs, services, and organizations for implementation on a broader basis. So thinking about what are those organizations or those community action organizations, agencies that really have innovations, and how are we like lifting that up, taking their lessons learned, so that certainly the challenges as well as the successes, and how all of that is certainly also centered in equity, and lifting that up to the network as an opportunity to learn. And we also have equity. And advancing equity creates opportunities for the improvement of communities that have been historically underserved, and supports historically marginalized individuals and communities in reaching their full potential, which benefits everyone, right? And it really does benefit all of our society. So as we think about equity, and in some of our survey responses, that has certainly come out, just that need for how are we ensuring that everyone has access to all the things that they need. So I've talked about it, and I've talked about it, and I've talked about it, and that's why we're having the live Q&A. We do, of course, if you have your phone and QR code, if you have not seen it, we do have our survey that is out, and it really looks at, as you look at those key focus areas, and kind of those sub areas, kind of ranking what are the priorities in your, within your community. What would you like to learn more about? So it doesn't mean that, let me say what it does mean. We would like to know what is most important, certainly for the network, and really just trying to prioritize that information. And so that's a lot of what the survey is, but we also want to know a little bit more in talking about what are some of the challenges and what are some of those opportunities that exist in those focus areas that you all see, again, really based on your community. So we are certainly asking that you complete and or share your survey. I know in some cases people are doing it individually. Sometimes people say, hey, I have a team meeting. This might be something that we want to do together or complete together as a team. So there are certainly different ways to really ensure that we have all of the voices, but we are going to utilize certainly the results of this survey as we think about training and technical assistance tools that are certainly developed for the network based in those particular areas. And that's why it's important that we really hope that you too will share the survey. One of my favorite phrases that I often say is phone a friend. We phone a friend often if we need help, but we also want to phone a friend because we want to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard and everyone has an opportunity, certainly, to weigh in. So that is our kind of brief recap of the collaborative on economic mobility. And there certainly is much more to come. But we wanted to also, we know sometimes when we have surveys and information that, you may have a question about it, or, something may or may not make sense, or you may say, I have, maybe you didn't have something in the survey that that we would really love to make sure that we're touching on, or is heard. So we of course want all of that information as much as possible. So wanted to have just a Q&A, certainly as it relates to completing the survey, and or if you have any other questions or comments, certainly about the collaborative on economic mobility. So with that, I will most likely take a breath, and we can certainly see if we have any questions. I know there were a couple that were submitted ahead of this, and we can certainly go into that as well. So I don't know if we have any questions yet. So maybe I may hand off to Karis to make sure that we are staying on staying on task and certainly on target with how this part will flow. So with that, Karis, I think I might hand off to you to see if we have any questions. Oh, will we go back to the QR code? I
I was
saw
about to say,
that.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat yet, but I did see a request to go back to that QR code. So there is that if you did not get a chance to scan that.
Well, let's leave it there. And then maybe what I'll do is answer some of the questions that came in. So I think that may work for all of us. With that, I'll also ask Karis if she wouldn't mind sharing some of those questions.
Yes, I can do that. So one of the questions that we had that came through, oh, just a moment, was we had someone mentioned equity opportunities for families of different ethnicity for employment opportunities.
So, and thank you for that, Karis. I think one of the things we did ask was questions or comments, and thinking about challenges, opportunities, and equity. What does that look like for families of different ethnicity for employment opportunities, and how are we certainly connecting that in? Certainly, as we look at workforce development, that is something one that we want to make sure that we cover, because when we talk about equity, we mean for all. So whether if it's different ethnicities, and we're certainly going to want to maybe pull out a little bit more information on that, and we'll have a little bit more on that later of how there's a survey, but we also want to hear more in real time, live time, from so we can dig a little bit deeper into this, but also what does it look like for, and I'm using workforce development as an example, what does that look like for rural demographics or rural communities versus maybe urban communities, right? Because we know that not all communities look the same and or have some of those same resources, et cetera. So I definitely think that is one that we will certainly lift up and connect into. So what do we have next?
We had someone else that was interested in how to remove barriers to successfully engage in whole family approach case management.
Thank you for that. So that we really do want to connect into, again, whole family approach to Jen. And we do focus again a lot on coaching as it relates to a whole family approach, and certainly building those connections with families. But as we know that our families certainly deal with many, many, many barriers. So as we think about whole family approach and uh, families being a part of that within an agency, I think that's also a good one for us to lift up in tools and resources. Um, so that's also a really good comment. Any other questions or comments? I'm looking to see if we have any in the room. Oh,
We did have one come through in the room. Says, last time you produced a white paper, what will be the final deliverable for this effort, such as a series of case studies for future reference?
Oh, that's a great question. So, we had that previous slide where it talked about kind of our approach in the timeline. So, we know for phase one, we're going to have a research report. We're also going to talk about, kind of what our dissemination plan is and our evaluation plan. So, we know that that's going to be kind of phase one. For phase two, when we talk about our the actual development and deployment of our training and technical assistance tools, we are going to certainly have a final kind of performance evaluation report. So that would be kind of our, I don't know if I would say it's our final deliverable. And maybe I would say maybe that's one of our final deliverables as it relates to, maybe what we would put out there. But I also think our final deliverable for the network would be our just the various training and technical assistance tools. So that can look different. So there certainly could be case studies. We could have a training series. So really thinking about what is the most impactful when we talk about training and technical assistance tools. Um, and we have certainly have done learning community groups. So that's a little bit more intensive. So I really want to say, as we think about what that is for the network, that can absolutely vary. That can absolutely vary. So as we think about kind of what that final deliverable is for access to the network, but we, certainly case studies or briefs, because we do want people to have information that they can refer back to and make shifts as needed, right? And connect in certainly with the work of our peers. I hope that answered the question. But if not, um, certainly let us know. Thank you for that. Will any training help agencies that are just beginning to implement whole family approach? So we have seen that in the survey, and if you have not completed the surveys, please do so, because we definitely see there being um, opportunities there. I think we did a pilot at MLTC, and one of the, what we were going through, what are the kind of challenges and opportunities, and I said, and if you don't know what whole family approach is, maybe say, what is whole family approach? And that actually certainly came out. So I do feel, very strongly that we're going to have to really make sure that as we talk about emerging and promising practices, that we're also creating some of those foundational pieces, right? That foundational learning, um, as we talk about whatever those promising and emerging practices are. Any other questions? I think we had another question from that was it, well, another question that came in prior to the live Q&A, and it was, what is the first thing you recommend for us to do when first meeting with someone we are serving? And that I want to kind of piggyback on that last question of, that, like, what is some of that foundational learning as we are engaging, in our work, and what are some of those tools, training and technical assistance tools that speak to whether it's coaching that speaks to relationship building, building trust, with families. A lot of that certainly I think has come out in some of our survey results thus far, but definitely seeing a need for some of that foundational learning with tools and resources. All right. Any other questions? And feel free as well. I know I'm talking, but we are in a meeting. So if you would like to, you can also you can unmute yourselves. I believe you all can do that. You can unmute yourself and certainly speak and or talk in real time. Certainly anything relating to the survey, because again, we are going to utilize that information really to help us develop or determine what those training and technical assistance tools will be that we will implement in phase 2. And Karis, if you wouldn't mind going back to that slide, just so, just real quick. Just so everyone can see that timeline as well. So right now we're definitely in the gathering, right? The gathering of information, certainly from the network, and that's really kind of that research report. As we talked about, we'll have training and technical assistance tools we'll talk about and what our dissemination plan is. And then as we look at the phase 2, which are kind of the last or the next 2 years of this project, that's really where you're going to see the kind of the dissemination of those training and technical assistance tools and resources. So, and then you of course see the final report on our outcomes and program performance. So, wanting to share that with you all as well. I do not think that there are any other questions. And so I think at this time, I'm going to hand back off to Karis, who is going to share some closing information with everybody as well.
Yes, thank you, Lily. So as we close out today, we do have an evaluation. So we do want to hear from you if this Q&A today was helpful for you. Any feedback that you want to share with us about today's webinar, you can scan the QR code here. We'll also put the link for you in the chat and in our follow-up email to share any feedback that you have with us. And then we'll also let you know about some upcoming opportunities that we have. So one is that we are going to be also doing virtual regional listening sessions that will be held in April and May to go deeper into this information that we're gathering through the survey and hear more from each of you in the regions that you're in. So stay tuned for that information as those dates will be shared out soon. And then we also have some learning opportunities. One is a National Leading Equity cohort. So if you want to enhance your understanding of diversity, equity, belonging, and justice, we do have a new opportunity to do that we are offering, and the deadline to register for that has been extended through April 3rd. So there is still time to register and be a part of that. We have a QR code that you can scan to learn more about that and to register, and we'll share the link with you in our follow-up as well. We also hope that you all are planning to join us for our annual convention. We'll be in Seattle, Washington, August 28th through 30th, and we'll be having a pre-con events the 26th and the 27th. So we hope that you are saving the date and planning to join us there in Seattle to celebrate our 60 years of community action. And then we have our contact information here. So if you have any questions or anything that comes up for you all after our time together today, feel free to reach out to us by email as well. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to reach out via email. We appreciate your time. Thank you.